So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. My name is Steve Jagger. I graduated from Vancouver College in 1996, and I'm the co-president of the Alumni Association along with Mark Reed. The VC Alumni Association is a member-driven organization aimed at bringing all alumni together. We run annual alumni events like the golf tournament, the Irish Christmas lunch, the fishing derby, there's a basketball game, there's a whole bunch of events, but due to COVID-19, everything for 2020, well, at least thus far, has been canceled and most likely will remain canceled for 2020. So instead of doing nothing, we decided maybe we could utilize the web and have a bit of a webinar series to bring alumni from around the world together and interview and chat with interesting alumni to learn a little bit more about who they are and what they are up to. The plan for the webinar is we charge, as you know, we charge $10 nominal fee. The idea behind the fee is to support Vancouver College owned or alumni owned restaurants. So we collect that money, then we purchase a gift certificate from that restaurant, which gives the restaurant owner some cash today. The Alumni Association then sits on that gift certificate and will utilize it next year as a gift or a prize at the golf tournament or the lunch or something. So it does get used. It's kind of a win-win for everybody involved. So with that said, let me introduce today's guest. Today, this is our fifth webinar. We're lucky to have Mike Desjardins with us. Mike graduated from Vancouver College in 1990 and is the CEO of Vertis. Mike is a skilled leader and coach that helps other business owners and leaders develop the emotional intelligence and leadership capabilities they need to grow and thrive. He has a Bachelor of Commerce from UBC Sauder School of Business, a CPHR designation, and over 2 decades of experience transforming businesses. He is a master in the realm of strategy and leadership development, and we are lucky to have him. So thanks, Mike, for joining us.
Thanks, Stephen.
So maybe can we just jump in right to the beginning here of the Vancouver College world? Can you just maybe tell us a little bit about VC? What year did you arrive? Why were you sent to VC?
Sent to VC. Well, I went to St. Paul's Elementary School in Richmond, Catholic elementary school. And so if you're a guy and you go to that school, that's kind of the direction you usually go. I think there's a few that went to St. Pat's, but mostly towards VC. And so I started in grade 8 and spent my 5 years at VC, graduating in 1990.
Nice. So grade 8, straight from St. Paul's. I think that's right. A lot of kids just funnel right in from there. So what did you do, VC, grade 8 to 12? Maybe a quick little recap of sports, academics. What was your thing when you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot actually. So I was on the track team and started right away in grade 8. Ended up doing my varsity letter in track. And I anchored the 4x1 and the 4x4 team, did the 100, the 200, and the 400. So track meet for me was a very busy day. Had a lot of fun. Was really grateful because there were a lot of the guys that were older than me. We started training with them early on. And so the result of us as a group training with the older guys they just pushed us to go to a whole other level. And so we saw that, the fact that we were younger didn't matter when we got out onto the field. So that was great.
Nice. And so that was back in the day, pre the good track and back on the old rubber, it was pretty weird black track at VC.
It was pretty dicey. Like we knew it, right? So we had home field advantage. We knew where not to step in spikes on that track because it could get pretty dicey on some of those corners if you tried to hug the corner on the inside. So that was track. Academically, my grades kind of went up each year, all the way through until grade 12. And then I was lucky enough to get accepted into UBC. I don't even know if I'd get in now with the grades. I think it's a lot tougher now. And then on to UBC Commerce after that.
Nice. Well, maybe not this year, 2020. They might not have a lot of their normal students showing up. So everybody on the wait list is probably good to go.
Yeah, good point.
So you went Vancouver College, you did UBC. Did you look at other schools, or why choose UBC? What was the?
My dad was a business guy. He was a hired gun for a long time, then he became an entrepreneur. And from my perspective, he was a mentor to me. And I really wanted to go the route of business. And so I can't even remember what grade, but I had a path set like early on in VC that I was going to graduate from VC and I was going to go to UBC and I was going to get accepted into UBC Commerce. I knew that Vancouver College had a very high acceptance rate into UBC Commerce. So I felt good about that. I didn't even apply to any other university. No, I know my path. I'm going this direction.
Nice. All your eggs in one basket, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, now looking back on it, probably wasn't the best strategy, but at the time I was so committed to the path that I didn't even apply anywhere else. So.
Nice. And so did you live on campus, or how did that part of it work for you?
No, I lived in Richmond, actually, not too far from Steveston High, and then at Woodwards and Q Road, between Railway and 2 on Woodwards. And stayed, even when I went to UBC, I was still living in Richmond.
Nice. Cool.
Commuted on the bus every day back and forth to VC from grade 8 to grade 12. So
nice. And then busing into UBC or driving by that point?
No, I got a car. I got a car at the end of grade 12. And so that made the commute from Richmond to UBC a little bit later.
Nice. And so you graduated UBC in what, 94?
94.
94. Mm-hmm. And so what happens that? What was your first job? Where did you go from UBC?
Well, so interestingly, right when I graduated from high school, my parents, this is going to be a bit of a weird story, but my parents bought a hot tub, and I went in to get the water tested one day at the store in Richmond, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to stock the shelves and, clean the hot tubs and the patio furniture and the fitness equipment." It's like a 10,000 square foot retail store called Beachcomber. And so anyway, I took that job. It was, it's basically a low man on the totem pole. And then I started selling, pretty quickly, I started selling the hot tubs when everybody else was busy, and the fitness equipment, and then patio furniture. And so over the next couple of years, I basically, while I was going to school, I was there all summer full time. And then I worked as much as I could through school. And in the end, or close to the end of second year university, the owner of, I didn't know what he owned, but it turns out he owned Beachcomber Hot Tubs, AJ Wholesale, which is this patio furniture wholesale company and fitness company, and a company called Purity, which is a water chemicals for pools and spas. So it's one group of companies. He said, "Listen, I've heard a lot about you. I know you've redone the inventory in the stores, on basically computerized everything in the retail stores. There were 6 of them." And so he said, "I want to chat with you about your future." So I said to my dad, "Yeah, the owner of this thing wants me to go to some public golf course in Coquitlam called the Vancouver Golf Club." I'm like, he's like, "It's not public and you need to dress up." And so I showed up at the Vancouver Golf Club and on Austin, and I had a 3-hour lunch with the CEO and founder of this company. And he said, "Listen, bring me what it costs for you to go to UBC for the next 2 years." And I said, "Well, I'm going to go do a law degree and I'm going to do an MBA. So I'm going to do an MBA first, and then I'm going to go and do a law degree after that." He's like, "Okay, whatever. Bring me what it costs to go to school there, and I want to have a conversation about that." So a week later, I was in his office and I said, "Here's what it costs." He's like, what is this?" I'm like, "This is my tuition, my books, my parking, and that's pretty much it to go to school." And he's like, "Is there any other cost to go to that school?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Okay, I'll pay for all of your schooling for as long as you want to go to school. So if you finish commerce and you want to come and work here after that, great. But if you want to do this law degree and this MBA," he's like, "that sounds like a lot of work. If you want to go the distance, I'll pay your way. But if it takes you 7 years or 6 years or whatever amount of time you have left, you got to work for me for that many years to pay off that education that I'm going to pay for you." And so I ended up, and he said, "And just so you know, I'm not taking advantage of you." He said, "Whatever your best offer is from another company when you graduate from UBC, I'll match that offer." So I said, "Okay, I'll think." At the time, I'm like, I think he just signed something like this and run with the paper. But I took it home to my dad and he's like, "Yeah, you do sign that and you do run." And so I came back to him and I said, "Listen, well, I know for sure I'm 2 years into this." And he's like, "Great. I got the next 2 years covered." So I graduated, realized that I took law courses in commerce, and I realized that I hated them. I really didn't want to be a commercial lawyer. It turns out it's nothing like LA law, which was, I think, what I had in my mind it was going to be like. And so I went to talk to the two professors that I admired the most. And they said, don't do an MBA. You're 21 years old. You'll be 22 because it's a 1-year accelerated program coming out of commerce. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Go work for a while and then come back and do your MBA. So I went to the owner and I said, okay, I'm here. So third and fourth year, he actually moved me into the chemical to start working in the chemical company. So I worked 30 hours a week in third year and 40 hours a week in fourth year. And I carried a full course load at UBC. And then I graduated and I hit the road as a road warrior, a sales marketing manager. I did that for a couple of years. And then I thought it was, a big deal. So I said, I had looked at the books and I realized that the company I was doing sales for and marketing was growing quite quickly. But the main company, the hot tub company, had been stagnant for 5 years. And so I went to him and I said, I think you should make me the VP of sales and marketing for the overall business. And I did a full commerce, business report with an executive summary and the whole thing. And he said, well, I'm not firing the VP of sales as you've recommended in your report here, Mike. But I will read it over and we can talk when you get back from your business trips. I took off to Hamilton, Ontario on a tour of dealers all around Ontario to go sell pool and spa chemical. And I get a call on my cell phone. He's like, okay, I read your report. I'm not firing the VP of sales. You're right. The sales have been stagnant. You're right. We're spending money on marketing and it doesn't make any sense not buying us anything. So when you get back from Hamilton, you are the VP of dealer acquisition and marketing. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I asked for. He's like, yeah, except the VP of sales is now the VP of sales and customer retention. And I'm like, so basically his job is not to lose all the clients that I go get us. And he's like, we're not going to frame it that way, but yeah, effectively, yes. And so I got back and I was VP of sales and marketing and I did that for a bunch of years. And then he and I fought over marketing all the time. He really wanted to control everything. And I'm like, I'm going to get fired at one point. So I said to him, listen, we grew the hot tub company. It was 10 million in revenue when I stepped in to do the sales. And then we grew it in 2 years to 35 million. So our quality was terrible. So the head of the chemical company came over, Jeff Owen, and he managed to basically clean up all the quality of the hot tubs. So we didn't have to go and repair 7 out of the 10 that were coming out of the factory because that's how bad the quality was. But it left an opportunity to be the president of the chemical company. And I realized that I was just constantly in a battle with the CEO over marketing. So I said, listen, why do you make me president of the chemical company? You can't find anybody to run it. Nobody understands the industry. I know all the clients. I did sales there. I know the entire staff. Make me the president of that company. So I did that for 4 years. And then this all happened in a really compressed time frame. I mean, I got a lot of opportunity at a really young age. And then I woke up in La Jolla, California in my girlfriend's apartment, February 8th, I think it was, in 1998. And I blacked out. And it took me 3 days. I kept falling on the floor. And so I had to cancel I was supposed to be in Anaheim that morning. It was a Friday morning. I canceled all my meetings. And it took me 3 days to kind of recover from that. And I realized that, at the age of 26, about to turn 27, that I was completely burnt out. I was in denial it probably took me 6 months to get through the denial because I was super fit. And, I'd set all these goals when I was 18 of things I wanted to accomplish when I was 30. And here I was sitting there and basically about to turn 27 and I'd hit all those goals. So I hit every single one on the list. And on paper, my life looked great, but I hated my life. I was miserable. And I kept buying nicer bottles of wine and I bought a nicer car and I got a nicer apartment and I moved downtown and nothing worked. I wasn't taking vacation. I was traveling on the road 2 or 3 weeks a month. And I'm like, I got to change my life. And so I took the next year to try to figure out what I was going to do. I had 3 different offers. And then my dad's ex-business partner from years ago had an idea that was kind of a hobby for him. And that was to do this startup called Virtus. Well, it wasn't called Virtus at the time. We ended up figuring out that was going to be the name. But anyway, so he said to me, hey, do you want to be my partner? I'm trying to get people to go into these peer groups for CEOs, kind of like a YPO or an EO or a Tech Vistage. And so I went into one of the groups, thought it was fabulous. He's like, what do you think about turning this into a business? And I'm like, yeah, I think it's a great idea. So he and I, he had two other partners, a facilitator and a woman that did some branding. He's like, I think the four of us should be partners and we should each put in 25 grand and we should start a business. And so I resigned after 10 years of being with the Beachcomber group of companies. And which was, I resigned at the Vancouver Golf Club with the husband and wife, both there. It was actually pretty emotional for me because, when I met them, I was 18 and here I was turning 28 and I was off to do this entrepreneurial startup. And I felt, at the time, I felt like, oh my God, I'm so young. I'm too young to be doing a startup, but you know what? I don't know enough yet, but I'm going to give it a shot and go for it. So that was kind of the beginning of my company.
Wow. And did that hot tub guy feel he got his full value from paying for your education and everything?
Well, I mean, I was there for 10 years, so I feel like
he was happy.
Yeah, it was, he and I differed from a values perspective, and that always caused a clash. I was trying to build a different culture. Like I had my own company, so it was separate buildings, the whole thing. So I was building a culture. He wanted us to spend a lot more time together, but values-wise, there was always a misalignment. And so really long term, he's like, you're supposed to be CEO of this company. And here I am resigning. He's like, I have financial freedom. I have no personal freedom. You're my personal freedom. And I'm like, it was your personal freedom, but I'm leaving. So
fair enough. So
yeah.
You moved on from that. You jumped right into your own business with Virtus. And so
because how long could it take to do a startup? It's probably easy, right?
It's no big deal. It's 90 days and you're good.
Yeah. I figured like first year we'd be just rocking it, right? So it's like this is October 1st of 2000 when this all started. So
wow. Okay. So tell us about Virtus. How did you had that chat with that guy and decided to set up this
Lance.
business?
Yeah, we decided to set up this business, and so
he was your partner.
He and there's two other partners. So there were four of us in total. We each had 25%. We put in 25 grand each. That was kind of our seed money. And so we started the business, and very quickly I'm like, listen, I was running with Lance around Stanley Park. It's one of the things we did together, and I said to him, this thing where we're meeting all the time to have partnership discussions is killing me. Like I need to be out there building this business and hiring people and like getting our legal framework done and finishing our shareholder agreement and all the stuff of setting up this company. And I said, there needs to be a managing partner. And I think it should be you. And I think you should kind of like take over making all the main decisions. And he's like, I 100% we're running through the trails of Stanley Park. He's like, I 100% agree with you that there should be a managing partner. But I'm not doing it, so it needs to be you. So we went back to our two partners and said, listen, like we need to change the structure. And that sort of made things easier. We were building up peer groups for CEOs and executives. We ended up building 11 of them in Vancouver, 5 in Toronto. And as I was flying back from Toronto to go to Seattle to get the one started in Seattle, I suddenly realized I'm on a plane for work, and one of the tenets of starting this business was I was going to walk to work, and I wasn't going to travel to work. I was going to live downtown Vancouver, and here I am. I'm breaking one of my rules. I'm on a plane for work, and so I'm like, I just don't want to do this anymore. So in 2003, I tendered a buyout offer to my 3 partners. I'm like, I don't want to do this the way we're doing this. I think you should buy me out. And 2 of them looked at the buyout offer and said, that's a very generous buyout offer, except we're flipping it and you're buying us out. And so I bought out 2 of the partners, left me with 1 partner, the facilitator, and then kept going. 2006, I realized that, this business of these groups was just, still wasn't what I wanted to do. And so 10% of our business was in leadership development and strategic planning. And I took the book Rockefeller Habits because I joined EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, back in 2002. I joined that. And so I took this book and I built a plan of what the future of Virtus was going to be. And it was going to be in leadership development and strategy and not in peer groups. And I brought it to my business partner, and he's like, I don't understand that world. I know how to facilitate groups. But I trust that you're making the right decisions for the business. And so, let's go do that. And about a year later, October of 2007, he came, for a couple different reasons. He came to me. He'd fallen out of. He sort of lost respect of the core team in the company, and so he came to me and says, "I'm not respected here. I'm not welcome here. I don't feel, and I also don't understand this business we're going into." And so then it took me about 7 months of talking to him to try to buy him out. Didn't have any business experience, so it's a super painful process to get him to just tell me what he wanted. So bought him out in March of 2008. And at that point, we were about 50-50 between our revenue was still about 70% from the groups and 30% from working in companies doing leadership development and strategy. And then, this is March 2008. He really liked to play the he said game on the way out, and I had to get a statement of facts written out, everybody in the company to sign it, to get him to stop saying crap out in the market, because he didn't like the fact that he looked bad having lost respect in the company, and made it kind of a mess of his exit. That was hard to clean up. I kind of decided that if Michael Moore did a documentary on this process, that I would feel proud to bring my my family and my friends and my clients to that documentary, and I knew he wouldn't show up. So that's how I kind of decided to guide my conduct through that time. And then, our clients weren't sure who to believe. So September 2008 hits, and I lose half the revenue of the company. So buy out the business partner in March. September 2008 hits, I lose half the revenue. And if you're playing the home game, you'll remember what else happened in 2008. So there I am sitting at the beginning of a recession, and half my revenue is gone. So then we wrap around, just like holding the thing together, racked up a whack load of debts. I had 60% of our revenue I had in debt by September 2009. And I realized I couldn't afford our rent anymore. I needed to get out of our office in Yaletown. And so I called up somebody that I really respected for his business expertise, but also his ability to run virtual companies. And his name is Stephen Jagger. And I said, listen, I need to take you out for a coffee. I need to take my company virtual. I don't know how to do that, but like everybody says, you're the guy, and I'm super impressed by what I've done. And so you were incredibly generous with your expertise and your time. And you taught me back when, the technology was like, horse and buggy technology back then. You taught me how to take my company virtual, and I did it in a month. And we got out of our office, still not knowing whether we were going to survive, but at least we weren't paying the $7,000 a month in rent. So that might save us. And I said to my fiance at the time, listen, I don't know if this thing's going to make it. I'm going to give it 4 more months, and then we're going to figure out plan B. And it got right down to the wire. I didn't have payroll, and payroll was, I maxed out my borrowing, and payroll was due on Christmas Day, and I didn't have it. And it was December 20th. And so I'm like, well, I have so much debt. I don't know how I'm ever going to pay it back. And I can't even pay people, and payroll for the whole company was due on Christmas Day. And so I guess it's done. I just didn't make it. And I got a call from a friend of mine that used to work at TELUS, who had moved over to Terracin. And she said, hey, I've got a project I want you to do, and it's to develop a leadership model for Terracin. And it's, we can't start till January, and we need it done by March. But I have money left over in my budget in 2009. And if I don't spend it, I'm going to lose it. Like, would you be open to me wiring you the money now? It's got to hit your bank account on December 24th. And if it doesn't, I lose it out of my budget, and it affects my budget next year. So if you're okay, I'll wire you the money now, but then you do the work in like January, February, March, and just keep it on the DL. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I had $6,000 of that amount. There was $6,000 left, and then a monstrous amount of debt. And we were in conversations with TELUS, and the chief learning officer for TELUS and I had been chatting for 1.5 years, who's turned out to become one of my closest friends now. He said, listen, we've been chatting for all this time. This is we've got a $26 million budget at TELUS to spend on learning. We have 41,000 employees. I can't just hire you, even though I really want to, but we are going to do an RFP. would you mind sitting on the internal RFP committee to help us craft the RFP so we make sure that it's a really good RFP for vendors to reply to, because there's gonna be vendors across North America. We assume about 30 are gonna reply. And I'd really like to make sure from a vendor perspective, we've done a good job crafting this RFP. So I'm like, one, didn't know that was a thing. Two, definitely say yes to that. And so I turned to Sabrina and I said to her, I'm pretty sure that if you get a chance to help write the RFP, you have a pretty good chance of winning it. Like, I think we should roll the dice and keep this company going. And so we limped through. We got a little bit more business January, February, March. And then in March, the leadership model went so well with Terracin that they came to us and said, we'd love for you to do a leadership development program for all of our directors and senior directors. And 3 weeks later, they signed a $343,000 contract with us. And I asked for 50% up front, and they said, no problem. And so I'm like, oh my God, we're probably going to make it. And so then that was March. July of 2009, I got a call from TELUS, and they said, we want to congratulate you. You've been awarded a vendor contract, minimum of a 3-year leadership development contract. It's a company called Global Knowledge, UBC, Rotman School of Business, and UVic Business. And the group of you are all going to partner together, and we're going to go develop all 11,000 leaders across TELUS. And we need your help to finish off the leadership model. And so getting TELUS and getting Terracin back to back, just being able to say those 2 words in conversation, it all of a sudden elevated us to a brand new level. And so going through 2010, things got better. And then BC Hydro, because we had Terracin and Fortis, they actually awarded us a contract, got caught by procurement because it was too large of a contract, said you have to go through an RFP process, but we wrote the proposal that got turned into an RFP. So then we won that in June of 2012, and we landed Cactus Club's leadership development, which has turned into we still work with Cactus today. So we had an 8-year relationship with TELUS, a 9-year relationship with what ended up being Fortis BC, because they kept working with us, 6 years with BC Hydro, and Cactus is still ongoing. The TELUS, Fortis and Hydro, we had to take a break because when you put an RFP and they extend it and they extend it and they extend it, procurement shows up and it's like, yeah, you cannot just keep extending these contracts. There's a maximum. So we basically burnt out the maximum on all those contracts. We're just about to do a new deal with TELUS that hasn't been announced. So don't just keep that in the delete. Silence. Yeah, it's fine. But and so yeah, we're doing it. Yeah, anyway. And then that's gone on from there. We just kind of kept growing from there. So now we've got Lush, Vanity Community Investment Bank, Central One, West Group. There's like you'll see on our website. We work with basically these huge companies that have BC Lottery Corp, large organizations, BC Children's Hospital Foundation. We do all leadership development there as well. So just think like big brands, enterprise-sized companies across Canada. That's who we support. And 90% of the revenue now today is leadership development, and 10% of it is strategic planning. And I've got 22 people, and they're spread across Canada, and we're still a virtual business. So
sweet. So
that for an answer.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I love the, I don't know, it's always good entrepreneur stories of like, we're almost dead, and then something, random happens that you couldn't really predict that saves the day. And, a lot of people would give up and not know if that's going to happen or not. So it's great to hear. I think it's amazing.
I did learn a valuable lesson through that, which is that I heard a saying from this guy in Ontario that I really loved, which is that, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash flow is oxygen. And I learned that really great cash flow forecasting at any stage of your entrepreneurial career is like the difference between surviving and not. You can be profitable and have revenue and run out of cash and just be done and not have the borrowing power. And so if you've got cash, man, you have opportunity to fix a lot of things. If you don't have cash, you don't have oxygen, you're done. And that was really hit hard for me. And so the last bunch of years, we've had blips where we've had cash flow issues show up. But our cash flow forecasting now is like at the best it's ever been.
Nice. That's awesome. So we're going to circle back on the work from home thing
Sure.
in a minute. And I see my business partner, Mike Stevenson's on here as well. So
Oh, great.
yeah, lots of the stuff we talked about back in the day came straight out of his head. So we can chat about that in a sec. But a question about, so you've got these big customers.
Yeah.
You're helping them with their leadership. They extend the contract. They extend the contract. Like, how do you validate that it's good work, and that, like, how do they know that this leader was a B and now they're an A? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of the holy grail in our industry. We've gotten really good at it. I actually have one person on my team who has a master's in learning technology, and her role is actually learning effectiveness analyst. And so that's her whole job. And what we do with our clients is upfront, we do a needs assessment. Like, we don't go to them and we say, hey, we've got the best leadership development program ever. You should just use it because we found the one thing that's going to work everywhere. That's ridiculous, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so everything we do is custom. And so we go to our clients and we do a deep needs assessment. We ask all their leaders, we interview, we focus group, we survey them, and we get a picture of what leadership looks like right now and aspirationally what it could look like. And then from there, that helps us create the design. And then through that, we're also talking to them about, well, what does a return on learning look like? And what is your return on investment? Because for us to stick around, through times where maybe their industry's struggling. And remember, there's an opportunity, I'll tell the story in a sec, but anyway, so we figure out our ROI metrics at the beginning and we put them in the proposal. And so clients know upfront what value they're actually going to get from us. And then we review that with them on a regular basis. We produce a deck every 6 months that is an executive deck and a board deck that shows the likelihood to recommend, like a net promoter score for all the work that we're doing. For the last 3 years, trailing, every leader, every company across Canada, we've asked that question, and every single time they're with us, and our average is 9 out of 10. Average. In our industry, 8's exemplary. 9 is ridiculous. Like, I don't, that might sound like, I'm trying to brag, but like, it's just ridiculous. Like, and the team I have has done that, right? Like, I'm not the person in front of these leaders developing them. I haven't done that really effectively since 2012. It's the team of amazing facilitators and designers and instructional designers and logistics people and, like, the customer team that are in there, making this happen for our clients on a regular basis. So we pull all that data, and then we feed it back to them in a way that also makes them look good. Because at the end of the day, our clients need to win because they put their trust in us, right? They've spent a lot of money with us. What we do, can cost up hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, right? And so they put their trust in us, and they need to know that they made the right decision choosing us. And so we consistently are able to show them that they made the right choice with us.
Nice. And so if you're the people that you have doing all this work are the reason, I'm assuming obviously because the systems and procedures and whatnot that you've got in the business, but how do you're the one hiring your people, I would assume. So can you speak a bit about—
Well, we do it by committee, but
yeah, how do you find these people? How do you know that they're going to be good or bad? How do you find that you're like the rock star team members that you've got?
So on the operations team that kind of effectively runs the business, I look for intelligent people that I think have a values alignment with us that I think could be a great fit for our culture. And we can teach them how to do anything if they've got those qualities. But if you bring in somebody who's got a lot of experience and they have, and they're really smart, but they've got low emotional and social intelligence, I can teach them how to do that, but it's going to be super painful and take a long time. And so I'd rather bring in somebody that maybe doesn't have the full understanding of the role or our world, but they have been a leader in the past, and bring them into our world and teach them everything they need to know, and give them the ability to have mastery in their craft, the autonomy to do the job the way they want to do it, and a connection to the purpose of our business, so they see directly how what they do is actually going to affect the outcome of the company. And that's not from that map, mastery, autonomy, and purpose, is the work of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi and Daniel Pink in a book called Drive.
Drive, yeah. Cool. And so,
and then, but to answer the question about the facilitators separately, those facilitators are all people that have masters in leadership or they have MBAs. One of them came from TELUS, so we worked with her for so long. Kieran, she's amazing, and she's like, I'm leaving TELUS, and we're like, great, will you come work at Virtus? And so she has for a long time. Another Elizabeth Klein, she was at Fortis, and she called me up and said, I'm thinking about leaving Fortis. I know you have a long hiring process that takes 6 months to a year and a half. Is there any way I could start going down that road? I'm like, we've worked together for years, so you don't have to go through that process. And so we've actually ended up hiring clients. The director of customer care for all of BC Hydro, senior director, Jim Nicholson, when he left BC Hydro, I'm like, Jim, you're amazing. You're an exemplary leader. You love this stuff. You're the guy that takes everything and does it. Come work at Virtus. And so he works at Virtus now. So I've gone to find people that have amazing reputations. If they're an independent facilitator out in the marketplace doing leadership development and they're really strong, then I have, I kind of know who the players are in space, and I just start spending time with them. And at one point, they can do a certain amount as an independent facilitator, but when they want to play in the big leagues, that's what we do. And so I get them the opportunity to do that. But all of the business development and the logistics and the admin and travel and all the financial stuff, I'm like, that goes away. There's a whole team of people that take care of that for you. I just need you to do what you do, be brilliant, and help our clients be brilliant and become stronger leaders. And so that's the opportunity that they have to come in and be a facilitator at Virtus.
Cool. And so before we're flying through almost out of time here. I've got 20 minutes left. If anybody has any questions in Zoom or in Facebook, just drop them into the comments and I can ask them for you. I want to switch over to the COVID stuff, but you said, just before I do that, you said your hiring process is 6 months to a year and a half.
For the facilitators, it is, because we just have such a high level. Like if they're going to deliver a 9 out of 10, keep in mind that's the average, right? So many of them are delivering above that number. We really have to know that they're going to be the fact that they're intelligent, that their resume is amazing, that they've got a great reputation, that they've got a long experience in our world, that's table stakes. Like that's how you get into the conversation with us. But whether or not they're a great cultural fit, they've got deep emotional intelligence, they're going to help us grow our culture, that takes time for us to figure out. So there's a group of us that do that process of interviewing them. And it's a series of conversations. We have them delivered to us. And we don't pretend we're no, come work with us. We're a team of people. We can always get better. We're always developing ourselves. Come develop us, show us how you work. And so we spend a lot of time because when they show up in front of, there was a webinar today that was running development for leaders at Central One. There's 82 people in there. So the facilitator that's in front of those leaders, that person's Virtus. So I have to know that I'm comfortable and confident that that person can deliver at the level that is expected from our clients.
Great. So switching over to the COVID-19 situation, you guys have been work from home or virtual for quite some time. Obviously it works for you guys. How has it affected how you work with your clients? I'm assuming most of them were not work from home. So what changed on that front?
Well, so COVID sucked and it was great. And I'll tell you why. So, the first thing that happened to us is on March the 16th, I got a call from Cactus Club saying we're shutting down 32 restaurants and we're going to figure out our delivery and take home program. Then we got a call from Lush. We're shutting down 248 stores across North America. Then we got a call from Pavco, which is Pavilion Corp. They run BC Place and the Convention Center. And they said, we're shutting both facilities down. We're canceling everything. And we're turning the Convention Center into a 200-bed hospital. And you can't tell anybody because it's not going to be out in the news for a couple of days. And then I got a call from Central One, which is the back-end support for all the credit unions in Canada. And they said, we're sending everybody home, but we perform the treasury function for that. And that has to be done inside Central One at all these secure terminals. And so we have to figure out a plan for that. Well, we developed all the leaders for those 4 organizations. That was just 4 clients. That was the first 4 in one day. We have a lot more clients than that. And so, they were in triage. And so we were ready to move to Zoom because we've been using Zoom for 4 years, even though nobody knew what it was. and we're super comfortable in it. We've delivered in Zoom, via WebEx, you name it, we've done it. GoToMeeting. We did avatar-based development, little avatars, kind of like first-person shooters without the guns in Xbox. At TELUS for years, we helped them beta test and pioneer that software. And so we're sitting there and we're like, we can do it. We can put everybody into virtual and switch our content over. Because you can't take a live content and stick it into Zoom. It sucks when you do that. It's just dreadful. It's cruel. And so you have to design for Zoom. Zoom can facilitate so many cool things that don't make sense in person. And you got to use the technology in the way that makes the most sense to create the best engagement for the audience. So anyway, our clients are in triage. We're in triage because we're not sure. They keep delaying the sessions because they're not sure if they should run. And they're like, well, maybe we'll do them in person. And we're like, think that's going to happen anytime soon. I was kind of banking on a September, potentially the September return to normal virtually, and a January return to normal for business development. So that's how I was planning our cash flow. So we were really thinking like, we're going to be at minimum probably in a virtual environment because kids aren't going back to school. So we're in triage because we're trying to figure out our revenue and our cash flow that's just drying up. And so we set ourselves up thinking that we just weren't going to be doing anything for a while. And we were built, but we did know that we had this project to do blended learning, which is to build our content on an online platform called Thinkific. So we poured gasoline on that. I was up in Whistler and I was walking the dog around, super stressed out, walking the dog around. Zoe, she's not here right now, but anyways, walking our dog Zoe and around the golf course. And I was listening to an audiobook called Pick a Fight, written by a guy named David Burkus. It's an awesome book. It's only available in audiobook. And he's like, you got to pick a fight as a team. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I had this epiphany. I'm like, we're all so stressed out trying to figure out what's going to happen. We need to pick a fight against this virus. So I went back and I'm like, we're going to pick a fight against COVID. So I told the team, this virus is not going to beat us. And I told all these stories of all these things that had happened in the history of Virtus over the last 19 plus years that had tried to take us out. And I'm like, this damn virus is not going to take us out. It's not going to. So let's pick a fight against this virus. And I'm like, but how do we know if we won? So we sat there and we brainstormed. We created this Google Doc that has 20 things on it. And we're like, if we accomplish these 20 things, then we beat the virus and the virus didn't beat us. And I just put it on Slack the other day because we've got probably more than a third of those things are green and about half of them are yellow. And then there's a small percentage that are red. So we're actually making really good progress on that. We've landed 9 new clients in the last 3 weeks during COVID, who, unlike our clients that are still trying to, reopen their restaurants and their stores and figure out the new normal and what this means for their business, these new clients are all clients that are hiring, that were not as affected by COVID, and so they've got budgets. And we come up with creative ways to help to support them. And they've said, well, of course we're doing it in Zoom. So it's not like we had to convert everything. We're building everything for them on the Zoom platform. And in a couple cases, we're using Microsoft Teams as well. And in one case, we're using WebEx, just security compliance issues. So that's what that's our life kind of right now. It's been different than I thought. Still not sure where we're going to be. We usually do half of our revenue between September and December in the average year. And so I'm still not quite sure where we're going to be financially, but I do know from a cash flow perspective that we're going to be okay. I cut my salary back 25% to help to support the company and to make sure that I didn't have to lay a single person off. And so I'm super proud to say that, proud and lucky really that we haven't had to lay a single person off and everybody's at full salary. And we're good cash flowing well into 2021 at this stage. And I'm just going to maintain that 25% buffer on my own salary just to make sure that we've got extra cash. Who knows what's going to happen in September? Like, fingers crossed they don't open the US border, because that would not, I don't think that would be good for business in general.
I saw 80% of Canadians have said.
I saw that stat today too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a bunch of US senators, wrote a letter saying we should open it. It was like, that's not a good idea.
I think the other thing, Stephen, is that our clients came to us and said, we need to learn how to work and lead remotely. So I quickly wrote a blog post about that and sent that out March 16th. And then they said, well, we want webinars. So we built the webinar, and I've given that webinar. Mark Reed actually attended one of them a few weeks back in his YPO forum. So I've given that webinar a ton of times. And then we've built a how to work and lead remotely program for leaders. And we've had a number of new clients that are taking that program now very specifically to teach them, because you can't just, as you and I both know, right? You can't just send everybody home with Zoom and a laptop and then think that somehow your culture isn't going to, mess up. Or, people are always worried, well, what are people? Are they actually working hard? And the reality is that people are working an average of 2 to 3 more hours a day than they normally would. Productivity goes up about 20 to 30%. And in about the 6-month mark, wellness drops off a cliff. And that's the thing CEOs and entrepreneurs need to be worried about. They don't need to be worried about productivity. Even with homeschooling, it's not an issue. They need to be worried about the wellness of their team, because in every company we've worked with, that's what's cratered.
Yeah, I can see that. I was talking to my wife yesterday, like 7 hours of Zoom calls. Don't think I left the house. It's like this.
And if you're on
that
Zoom,
was not a good day.
Yeah, and I think that one of the problems is if you're on Zoom and you can see yourself on video, so all of you probably can see your own little picture up there. If you hover over your picture, 3 little dots will show up. Click those dots and then click hide self view. And the reason you want to do that is that effectively you've been sitting here on this webinar holding up a mirror beside yourself, looking at yourself the whole time. Like, who would do that in a meeting or while watching TV? It pings our egos and our subconscious so much that it actually makes a Zoom call significantly more exhausting to be on. So by turning off your self view, you'll reduce the stress load and the load on your ego and your subconscious, and it'll make it a lot easier to handle these Zoom calls.
Yeah, I remember I read some blog post that said most people in Zoom are staring at themselves in the camera, and I was like, oh, good, it's not just me.
Yeah,
it's like you definitely do. So we got 10 minutes here. There's a couple of questions that have come in the chat.
Go for it.
But so do you have any? You talk to these massive clients, big names that we all know.
Sure. Maybe
you can't give us names or naming companies, but can you give us some of the stories of what these leaders are thinking about how COVID, is Cactus Club going to some different model, or is TELUS not going back to work ever? Or what, you don't have to give us the company names, but are there things that these leaders are saying, this is like how Twitter said, we're not going back to the office, or Shopify said the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, Cactus Club is a good example. That we also do all the strategic planning for Cactus Club and have for the past 8 years. So privy to I can't even go down that road. Just I know too much about that organization.
Let's just say a large restaurant chain in British Columbia. What are the?
The only one we work with because we're exclusive to them too. So no, so in general, I can speak in generalities. I think that the challenge that I hear executives raising right now is that the issue of whether or not a job could be work from home, that's done. You don't have that argument anymore as a company. You don't have that argument anymore as a leader. Unless you're literally working on a machine that's in a factory, if you're a knowledge worker of any description, that job can be done at home. And the concept of not being able to, we have 3 large provincially based organizations that are the 3 of the larger employers in the province that did culture reports about going into a work from home flex or a flex environment, like a hybrid environment where you're having some people work some part-time in the office, part-time at home. And they all had 18-month rollouts. And the reports were delivered in January and in March. And then of course, those 18-month rollouts happened March 16th in a day or over a couple of days. And so what's happening now is that we're going to move into this hybrid environment. And I think the thing that is missed, that's important in this conversation, is that you can't disintegrate the schools from, or disassociate, I should say, schools from work. Because, you have a large percentage of the working population that would need to stay home with their elementary school age children if the children aren't able to go back to school full time. There's already a disparity where school ends at 3 o'clock, and what do you do with kids between 3 and 5? That's already messed up. But now in COVID, we're in a situation where companies are having to figure out, well, who can go home, and can we have everybody work from home? Is it, are people going to work where they hotel, where they come in and they work part-time in the office, but then how do you ensure the cleanliness of the office? It's because there's a security and safety factor, not a security, but a safety factor around how WorkSafe BC wants offices to be clean, right? And so if you've got people that are using somebody else, like they're hoteling it, they're using like a common desk, for instance, right? Then you got to worry about the cleanliness. And, if everybody did want to go back to the office, can the offices actually have everybody come back? Like a lot of offices are not set up. If they're an open office plan, even with plexiglass, they may not be able to provide an environment where they can have all of the work safe in place. So I think we're going to be, we're definitely going to be in a hybrid work scenario. The way I talk to CEOs and executives about this is I'm like, there's before March 2020, and there's after March 2020. And any thoughts you have about before March 2020, those are nice things for history textbooks and blog posts, but they have nothing to do with reality. After March 2020, we're in a whole different world. And whether you call it distributed workforce, flexible work arrangements, work from home, or hybrid working environments, that's the way that we're going to end up being. So I don't know what that's going to do to the commercial real estate market. That's going to be a very interesting space. So that's the conversation. The thing is, Stephen, that this conversation is happening. It's not a conversation that I can speak to retrospectively, like, oh yeah, these organizations have all made the following decisions. They're in the decision right now, and they're struggling to figure it out. And I think whether school children go back, and we're just talking about BC here, but I work, with companies all across Canada, right? And you see what's happening in Ontario and Quebec right now in terms of their COVID outbreaks. And we'll see if kids are able to even go back to school full time in September. That'll have a dramatic effect on what that hybrid work environment will look like. So
cool. So I've got maybe three more questions here. These are from people who've messaged here. This one's more of maybe a bit of a difficult one. Like how do you advise your leaders, and did you have to, on all this, the Black Lives Matter and sort of what's been happening? How did you handle that?
Yeah.
The guy who trains leaders as a white person, how do you handle that when it comes up? Because I'm sure it happened within your organizations that you coach.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, every single executive team that's on the radar, and what we advise them to do is to work with firms that work on, so there's diversity, there's inclusion, you've got racism, and you've got anti-racism, right? And so we said to them, you really need to be working with organizations that can help to coach you through this and do a great job at that. We're not experts in that. We're learning. We decided to do a 4-part series by the Attaway Group out of the US called Whiteness at Work, to help to educate ourselves, but also how to figure out how to take action. We also decided to read a book by Layla Saad called Me and White Supremacy as a team. And I reached out to a woman I have a lot of respect for. She is the VP of People and Culture at BC Lottery Corp, which is one of my clients. I've known her for a long time. Her name is Yubom Gilpin-Jackson, and she's got a PhD in organizational development, so very bright lady. She's a very senior leader, and she is a female, and she's Black. And she was writing some amazing things on LinkedIn, and I wrote her a note and I said, what I learned is that one of the things I can do right now to be a good ally is to amplify your voice. And I have started this podcast, and I have access to all these CEOs and all these leaders across Canada. And I'm in the EO Entrepreneurs Organization. I have a ton of friends in YPO. I belong to MMT, another global organization. I have this privileged position as a 48-year-old white male who's a CEO who works with leaders and knows a lot of leaders. I can get your message out. Would you be open to having a conversation with me and recording it? And we had the beautiful, heartfelt, emotional conversation where she shared the message she wanted to share. And I was really clear with her it's not your job as a Black person to teach me how not to be racist. All I want from you is for you to tell your story. And whatever message you want out there, I want to help amplify that. And then it's on myself and other white leaders to go educate ourselves on, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough to say you're not racist. You have to take action to be anti-racist. And I'm honestly, Stephen, still in the learning phase of that. And I'm doing a lot of listening. But it was important for me to take action. So I did that. I put it out on YouTube. If you just go on YouTube and look up Mike Desjardins, you'll see there's a channel on there. And I did an hour-long conversation. It's definitely, if you're curious and you're feeling like there's so many resources and you're trying to know where to start, I'd start in that video because what she said was heart-wrenching and beautiful at the same time, and helpful.
Nice. That's amazing. Good for you for doing that. So, wow, we've 2 more minutes here. So here's a one, and then maybe some advice to someone wanting to be a better leader. But this one, I think, is interesting for Vancouver College and kind of any of the schools out there that are trying to figure out, So the question is, what suggestions would you provide for educational leaders on, how do they do what they do when September starts? Like, what do you do if you need to get little kids back into school, or the older kids, or you can't split up the school if the facilities aren't big? Like, how do you, if you could give advice to some educational leaders, what would that be for September?
I think the thing that I saw that was the most challenging, and I've had a lot of conversations with parents at my daughter's school and at other schools who tried their best. The teachers came back from spring break, and they're like, you got to learn this, that you got to learn Google Meet, you got to learn Zoom, you got to learn this technology, and then you got to take all your curriculum and then like somehow magically put this out and like finish off the school year. And they did an exemplary job of doing that, but they did take the content and they put it into the online platform. And that's, now that we have time to prepare for it, my recommendation and what the learning we've had is learn tools like Zoom. If you're going to use Zoom or Google Meet, learn what they're capable of, learn what plugins they have, learn the cool things you can do. You can throw music into Zoom, you can do breakout rooms, you can do polls. There's a cadence and a flow to designing an amazing educational experience online that creates time distortion, where an hour and a half feels like 30 minutes, for instance. That just takes not thinking about how to convert the content. It thinks like, here's the content, here's the tool. What's the best way to use the tool to deliver this content? It may look completely different than the experience that you had in classroom. And then if you want to get to the next level, there's tools like Miro, M-I-R-O, and Mural, M-U-R-A-L, which are virtual whiteboards that allow you to create immersive environments for learning. And they are phenomenal. They're definitely next level. It's where learning, development, strategy, education, I think, is going next, because it's all based on visual collaboration.
Cool. Yeah, I would hope we'd see some of that put in there, because I agree. Doing the parenting and the schooling from home, I think the hardest part of it was the school part of all of a sudden we're teachers and we're trying to run through their homework. I'm Googling stuff that my grade 2's been told what to do. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how this all comes back. So last question for you, and maybe you can sort of, I guess, frame it however you like, but what advice would you give to someone wanting to be a better leader? And are there some people that are just they're not going to be leaders? It's just not, are there people that just, it's never going to happen for you? And
no,
anybody can lead.
Yeah.
And how do you become a better leader? Like, what advice
Absolutely.
would you give to somebody?
At some point in your life, you may be called to lead. It could be because you see something that you don't agree with that happens on the street and you decide to take a stand. Could be because you're a parent and you're trying to guide the next generation in your family. It could be because you are in an opportunity to teach somebody a skill. You could actually have the title of a leader, but everybody at some point in their life is going to be in a leadership position. And it is a skill that some people have a proclivity for it because they had great mentors when they were younger, and they've learned those skills at a young age. But it is something that you can learn to be good at. At its base level, the concrete foundation over which all leadership rests is emotional intelligence. So your ability to be self-aware, to empathize, to be able to motivate yourself and hold your motivation, your social skills, and your ability to self-regulate. That is to be able to be aware of and control your reactions to your emotions. So those 5 skills are all skills that can be learned. Your IQ is not very malleable. You might move up a couple of points over time. Your EQ, your emotional intelligence, is something you can grow through your entire life. And if you want to get good at leadership, focus on your emotional intelligence. If you want to start your emotional intelligence, focus on self-awareness, because self-awareness and empathy are the same areas of the brain. How you can get better at self-awareness? The easiest way is meditation and mindfulness and journaling. Those 3 ways, super easy ways to get better at it. And that will help to build your empathy muscles at the same time. If you're already a leader and you want to become a better leader, the easiest thing you can do is like turn to the people that you're leading and say to them, what do you want more of from me? What do you want less of from me? And what am I doing that is just right? And they might not answer you right away. Usually people are a little hesitant because they're not sure what you're going to do with the information. But over time, if you continually ask that, people will give you direct feedback about how you're showing up for them as a leader. Because at the end of the day, how you are as a leader matters only about how you're perceived by others. It doesn't matter how good you think you are, it's how good everybody else thinks you are. Because if you think you're a great leader and then you turn around and there's nobody following you, like, you're not a leader.
You're just going for a walk.
Yeah, you're going for a walk by yourself, right? So
cool. Awesome. So thank you very much for doing this, Mike. It's been, I think it's been amazing. What's the best way for people to contact you if they wanted to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, my company is vertisinc.com, so www.vitrusinc.com. I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to add me on LinkedIn if you want to connect there. The podcast is on YouTube, but it's also on like everything, Spotify, like pretty much everywhere. But Anchor FM / Mike Desjardins has the podcast up, has all the links to all the podcasts on it. So those are all easy ways to communicate with me. And my email, you're welcome to email me as well. My email is miked@vertisinc.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you again. Thanks for doing this. Everybody, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for joining on Facebook. Just a quick reminder, we are doing another one of these next week, Wednesday. We've got Dr. Kieran McConnell, who's a grad of 86, who's on the VPD, or was on the gang squad of VPD. He's going to talk to us about policing and how he got there and what life is like being a police officer today. So again, thanks, Mike, and I hope to see everybody next week.
Yeah, I appreciate you making time for me and the conversation this evening. I'm super proud to be a VC alumni, and it's great to see some familiar faces up on the video here today. And I love that. I think there's an entrepreneurship class that's actually listening in on Facebook as well. So hi to all of you. Dive into entrepreneurship as early. It turns out I was actually old starting a company at 28. I thought I was super young, but if you got an idea for a business, don't hesitate, even in university, to get into or in high school, to get your business started now. You never know where that could take you.
Totally. I totally agree. Every day you wait, it gets harder.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Have a great night, everyone.
See you.